So final panel of the day. I'm absolutely delighted to be here and to be closing it. I did just introduce myself, but I'll do it again. So I'm James Bott. I'm the CEO and co-founder of the ASO Co. We're an app store optimization agency. If anybody wants to talk about ASO, please give me a shout. Just to kick off, what I'd love is if everyone could just introduce themselves. Drew?
Hi, my name is Drew. I help out with marketing at a mobile banking startup here in New York called Current. Yeah.
Great.
Hello, my name is Mark Loranger. I'm a co-founder of Bravo Capital. We provide on-demand funding for mobile apps.
Hi, everybody. Hello? Okay. My name is Mirela Ciolai, and I'm the director of mobile at Zinio. We are a digital newsstand. We distribute magazines in digital format.
Hi, everyone. My name is DJ. I'm the head of creative at a company called Perksy. We are a market research app with a connected web platform where companies can create all the questions and send them instantly to consumers on our app.
I've got to say, DJ, your transformation is phenomenal.
I mean,
wow, that must be like some crazy LA doctor week. Or something.
It's Pride Week, so it made sense for me to
woo.
go full out.
Woo! Okay, so we're going to kick off with some presentations. So everyone's kindly put together a few slides on their business and kind of what they're up to. And then I think some of them have got some kind of future predictions. And then after that, we'll kind of go into some questions and then hopefully speak to the audience, and then we can go to the pub. Or bar.
Like I said, I'm at a banking startup called Current. The product is about 4 months old. I joined about 2 months ago, so there's not like a whole lot I can share, but I'm going to share a few wins that we've recently seen. Just for some context, what our product does, we're like the term is like challenger bank. Basically, our core product provides people with 2-day early direct deposit, no minimum balance, no overdraft fees, no gas holds at the gas pump, and no hidden fees. And we're like pretty sure the first black debit card on the market. And this is kind of like our core audience, and this is just context for how we like approach creative. Our core age group, 18 to 35, people who have like an annual household income of $75,000 or less. So we're targeting a lot of people who are middle to lower income. And these are people who are traditionally, who have been underserved by traditional banks. So people suffering from paying overdraft fees, like not getting their money quick enough. And they tend to pretty much be in the Midwest, smaller cities around the U.S. Occupation, people who work at like Walmart, Sam's Club, driving for Uber. So yeah, the first one, it's kind of like a
Mazel tov.
So I guess this is like a liftoff thing of like which creative would work better. This is a creative that we thought would work really, really well. We're highlighting all the value props, showing like the card and the app, thinking like this would do really, really well. And then we have the creative on the right, which is just showing the black debit card in a subway turnstile. Doesn't really tell you much about like the debit card, but
shiny though.
It's shiny.
It was shiny, yeah.
Wait, could you click? Oh, yeah. So like for the subway creative, we actually saw like a 60% increase in our conversion rates for our CPA. And it was like kind of weird, like when we first saw these results, but when we like really thought about it, this is like kind of like our thoughts behind it. Like the first creative was like very branded focus, very simple, generic type banking app that you'd probably see on Facebook. Noisy with like a bunch of colors and just like hitting you with like tons of value props. But the second creative kind of shows like the black debit card in someone's hand. And we think, speaking to being in like New York kind of like shows like a level of status, and like the black debit card actually gives people a feel of status who don't typically have that from where they're from, and that's kind of like the demographic that we're targeting. So we've been like iterating on this a ton and showing like things in New York or like things like traveling in an airport with like the debit card has like worked really well for us. And yeah, this is Adam, who's like the influencer king. We've been testing a bunch of influencers on YouTube, and this is our most successful one recently. And yeah, you could just play it.
As you can see, today's video is gonna get kind of crazy. But before we do, I want to give a huge thanks to today's sponsor, Current. Current is a new mobile bank that comes with a Visa debit card you can use online, at stores, or even at ATMs. Really cool thing about Current, it has no minimum balance, so you don't need a certain amount in your account to keep the account. There's no overdraft fee or hidden fees. And they also have a premium black card account, which features some really awesome perks, including getting your paycheck early. Yeah, that's right, I said it right. Getting your paycheck early. You set up your direct deposit with Current. Using this account, you can get your money 2 days before everyone else, and maybe even earlier. The app is super fast with smart notifications, bounce your money, and personalized saving pods to help you save money. It's way better than brick and mortar bank. Built for more modern life in a way that these slow traditional banks are just not. You can get Current for free on iPhone or Android right now. It literally takes an average of 2 minutes to sign up, and your Current card will be sent to you right away. So switch to Current now and get your paycheck 2 days early. Who doesn't want to get their money early? I love getting my money way early. So click the link at the top of the description to download now. I promise you guys, you will not be disappointed. Woo.
Yeah. Nice. It's a really funny influencer video, but like the demographic of Pretty Boy Frito, like it's pretty much identical to like who we want to target to use Current, and yeah, the results like were clear. I think other influencer videos that we've tested, we've seen CPIs of like $5 and higher. So yeah, this is just how we're approaching things at Current.
Okay, as I said, I'm Mark Loranger, co-founder of Bravo. We provide funding for app businesses. So, you know, I can't really tell you about interesting new tactics we're using in mobile growth, but what I can tell you a little bit about is how we think about the market and how we evaluate companies and app businesses in the context of how they're growing. So, a little background, you know, our vision for Bravo is really to sort of redefine what it means to finance and fund growing technology businesses, primarily app companies, by looking at the data that really matters. So, you know, historically, funding platforms, funding providers, banks, VCs, you name it, they're looking at historical data. There's a lot of information asymmetry. They don't see the same things that the company is seeing. And ultimately, it's a very arduous process for both sides to get to a point where they understand the risk and financing decisions can be made. You know, for our platform, you know, we start with data. We start with integrations to the app stores, to the ad networks, to the analytics platforms that really tell us the performance of a business in its most fundamental way. And we use that data to provide funding based upon not only their current performance, but where the business is going. So everyone here, most of you are marketers, growth marketers. You sort of fundamentally understand the fact that you're acquiring users at a certain cost. You're retaining those users engage with your product, and that leads to future revenue or downstream revenue. You understand retention curves and LTV curves. Our system interprets that data in the same way that you interpret that data in terms of value and future growth, and that's what we provide funding against. So if you think about like what performance-based funding means, it's looking at information about a business from a lot of different perspectives. If you think about like a business intelligence stack, we call it, there's the acquisition stack, there's the payments or transactions layer, you've got the engagement layer, and then what else is there? There's distribution. Okay, so moving along. Clearly this slide was not resonating. So Won't talk too much about our business. This is more about sort of the future of growth. But one thing to sort of wrap up about our company is, we believe entrepreneurship doesn't have borders. We believe entrepreneurship, it doesn't matter where you went to school, who you know. So we are really a global brand, and we're building a global financing platform, based upon performance data, based upon the information that matters about how a company is growing their business. We just pulled some data recently about our customer portfolio, and we found some interesting tidbits. I'll share one here. So among our entire portfolio of customers, about 1 in 5 is founded by a female. So about 1 in 5 female-founded businesses in our portfolio, and these are tech companies. So in terms of the demographics of most tech companies, that's a pretty good ratio. It's still not great, but 1 in 5 is quite good, and probably a lot better than most funding platforms. But what's even more interesting is that more than 50% of the funding we've ever distributed since we launched in late 2015 has gone to those female-founded companies. So over 50% of the funds we've ever deployed have gone to women-founded companies. I think that's really cool. And you can draw your own conclusions from that, but if 1 in 5 are our customers, but 1 in 2 are getting more money, you might draw your own conclusions about those companies and the women who lead them. So a few thoughts about the market, and then I'll hand it off in terms of the future. We look at the market in a few different ways. When we talk about algorithmic funding and data-driven financing, there's this sort of amorphous idea of it's all driven by data, but data starts with machine learning algorithms. It all starts with business logic, business rules, and assumptions. And so we think about challenging those assumptions on a regular basis. And so we think about that in 3 layers. The top layer is sort of overall ecosystem, what's happening at the ecosystem level, how things are changing or how they might change. And so in the context of discussion today, one of the things that we're thinking about is the next evolution of how monetization is working. So, when the App Store started, it was free or paid. You had ads layered in there. There's in-app purchases. The freemium model took over. Subscriptions were introduced a few years ago, and subscriptions became sort of ubiquitous. Then what Apple realized is a lot of companies were abusing subscriptions, and they sort of made a lot of changes. And so we're really thinking right now about what is the next evolution of monetization for app businesses. So that's one area of sort of where we might be going and more of an open-ended observation. We also have sort of the platform level. And so at the platform level, we're thinking about how Apple makes decisions, because obviously Apple is the most dominant platform in the market. And what we saw recently was Apple blocking third-party SDKs from retaining data on kids' apps. Now, that is done under the sort of guise of protecting personally identifiable information, particularly for children. But Apple may have other agendas when they do things like that. As many people probably know, Apple has provided some attribution functionality within the iTunes Store. And so if they block third-party SDKs for measuring things, and then they offer their own attribution, what happens in the future in terms of measurement, right? That's at the platform level. And then at the sort of app publisher level, developer level, we really are wondering how companies are going to iterate faster on creative. So your sort of presentation was really, really relevant. We see the biggest challenge for scaling UA is more on the creative production side than it is on optimization of downstream events, right? So most tech companies, most app companies are tech companies. They have a lot of great engineers, a lot of great product people who are doing all kinds of downstream optimizations, day 7 retention, day 30 retention. I'm probably talking too long, so I'll wrap up now, but we can talk about this stuff afterwards if it's of interest.
Yeah, definitely.
Again, I'm with Zinio. We were founded in 2001 in San Francisco, and we are the first and one of the largest digital newsstands. We currently have a portfolio of over 6,000 magazines, which are being distributed through our online newsstand and through our mobile apps for Android and iOS. And today I'm going to talk about app ratings. I know that there were a lot of other panels today mentioning app ratings, so I hope you guys don't mind sitting through yet another presentation about app ratings. So I'm just going to go really quickly through why app ratings matter. So ratings are the third most influential factor in search ranking and ASO. Also, ratings affect user consideration. When new users install an app for the first time, 80% of them are checking the ratings and the reviews. 53% of users who already have an app would check the ratings before upgrading it, and 55% of users would check the ratings before they would make an in-app purchase. Ratings are also influencing the install conversion rate, so from impressions to install. An app with an average rating of 1 star would only get 10% of users who visit that app's page to install their app. Apps with an average of 3 stars have 50% of users actually install the app after they would check their app page. And the reason why we were so focused on the app ratings, last year we had a platform upgrade, which kind of annoyed our existing users, which complained they ended up giving us 1 and 2 star ratings in the App Store and posting a lot of negative reviews. Pre-upgrade, we had an average rating of 4.2 stars, and we are in top 40 within our category. Post-upgrade, our rating dropped to 2.1 in a couple of months, and we ended up in top 500. Yeah, it was not fun, trust me. The solution we found, besides fixing the issues that our customers were complaining about, was also to reach out to our happy customers, the ones that were not expressing their feelings, and basically encourage them to express their love for our brand by rating us. We set up a triggered in-app campaign, simply asking users, would you rate us 5 stars? The objective, obviously, to increase the average rating, prevent the negative reviews from appearing in the App Store, and giving customers a form where they would tell us what the problem is, provide feedback, and obviously we would gather this feedback and use it to fuel our future growth. The timing is very important. Basically, we would want to target users when they're most likely to be very pleased with their experience in the app. That could be after they made a purchase or after they interacted with the product by either reading an article, bookmarking an article, or sharing a product, etc. Or users that have multiple sessions within a very short amount of time. Basically, what we did were identifying 15 segments based on the previous criteria, which I mentioned previously: purchasers or people that had a lot of sessions, users that just interacted with a product. We ran tests on all these 15 segments, targeting 10% of each segment. After several months, we looked at the results and we selected the top 5 winning segments, the segments that delivered the highest percentage of promoters. We ramped up campaigns to 100% of the audience for those top 5 segments. And the results, in 6 months from launching the campaign, we achieved an almost equal number of 5-star ratings with the number of 5-star ratings achieved in 8 years since the app was launched. In 6 months, we increased the rating from 2.1 to 2.3, and currently our average rating is 4.5, and we are now ranking in top 20. So it worked. So yeah, hopefully you found this useful, and thank you so much.
All right, so I am with a consumer insights company, and we've sort of become the leader in millennial and Gen Z insights. And so I'm here to talk about sort of Gen Z-ification today. And being in the nature of consumer insights, I always like to start these kinds of things with an insight. And that's surprisingly that millennials are actually on their phones more than Gen Z and for longer periods of time. And so I guess kind of a couple main points that I've put up here that I'd like to really call out in knowing sort of why this is happening. I think a lot of us can talk about like the what, like where to reach, Gen Z. But I think it helps really to understand the behaviors that are driving these factors. And so one thing that's kind of interesting about millennials versus Gen Z is that millennials actually grew up, and I think most of us in this room are millennials, in an economic boom. And so what that means is millennials sort of got to try one of everything. You know, they weren't really limited in things. They had the freedoms to get sort of as many things as they wanted and sort of choose what they wanted. Gen Z actually grew up in an economic boom. And so they didn't get as many toys, they didn't get as many different things, so they sort of cherish the small things that they do have a bit more than millennials do. And I think it's kind of interesting in that millennials are also sort of more basic, I guess, than Gen Z, and I'm a millennial, so I think I can say that. But there's a reason why millennials coined the phrase basic bitch. Because, like I was saying, when you get to sort of try everything, you don't really cherish as many things as closely. I think one of the other interesting points on this chart is that millennials sort of want things to align with their values more, but Gen Z actually enjoys things that just feel more authentic. And that really stems from Gen Z just being more accepting. So whatever your company is putting out there, I think it's really beneficial to know that if you're targeting millennials, you really have to sort of figure out what their values are so that you can reach them based on that. With Gen Z, though, you just have to sort of feel authentic. And I think how that's come to life for us being Perksy and just running our ads is that millennials, we sort of do these more still ads that target, you know, sentiments that they're talking about in pop culture. And all of our Gen Z ads are actually a consumer just talking to the camera about our app. And so it feels really authentic. It feels really real. And so no matter what you're selling, I think it's important to speak the language. And so I'm going to show a little clip from our app, Perksy, in sort of how we're speaking the Gen Z language. I think a lot of us have gotten surveys from whoever being like, get a $5 Amazon gift card if you fill out this survey. It's like a blank white survey where you fill in these little dots. Our app actually has, you know, emoji response. We have thumbs up, thumbs down, which is the modern ranking system. And so we're really just speaking their language. They earn points for every question they answer, and then they actually get to cash those points in for gift cards, for subscriptions to Netflix, Hulu. So they're really getting to choose what they want, and that's really bringing in that personalization element. So it's letting them sort of choose their own adventure. My next little tip is always aim for zero barrier to entry. So I'm going to make everyone participate a little bit. Raise your hand if you have a device that you can use AR on, so augmented reality. If you don't have your hand up, that means you don't own a smartphone, which worries me a little bit. All right, so now put your hand up if you own a device that you can experience VR on, virtual reality, so a headset. So a lot less hands. So as fun and cool and shiny as some things may be, keep in mind that a barrier to entry is actually keeping someone from consuming your product. So my next slide is just a fun little visual of that. And then my third little tip, most importantly, have fun. Like I think right now the direction that Instagram is going is really they're becoming a data platform. I think, you know, we hear a lot in the news lately about like them hiding the likes, about like targeted ads, things like that. Nobody likes interacting with their friends on a data platform. And so that's really where TikTok is taking off. For anyone who doesn't know what TikTok is, it's a video platform where every single piece of content you consume takes up the full screen as the individual piece of content. You're not really scrolling through, you know, a bunch of things with a bunch of words and comments and things like that. So keep that in mind when sort of building out your experiences. And yeah, that's all I've got to say for now.
Great. Okay. Well, actually, leading on from what you just said, so the panel really is about the kind of future of app growth. And actually, I think if I hear the word AR, VR, or blockchain again, I think I might go and do something I'll regret. Is that, like, have you actually seen any really good applications of any of those things we just mentioned? And, you know, is that an integral part of the future of app growth? I'll ask DJ first.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's incredible applications for both of these things. There are major wins that are happening, but really, like, anyone can build a really, really cool thing. But if no one's able to use that really, really cool thing, then you're not going to grow, and then there really wasn't a point in using it. I think VR is a little bit ahead of its time. There's a lot of cool like devices out there, and I would love to be able to just like carry a headset with me everywhere I go. But the reality is that I carry my phone with me everywhere I go. So in terms of AR versus VR, VR, virtual reality, is just so much easier. You're able to build out these experiences. You know, I can like move my phone around and this chandelier can like catch on fire, or, I mean, maybe that's a bad example because there's only a couple doors to exit the room, but in terms of accessibility.
Burger King just did a fire one, didn't they?
Yeah, there's a lot of look in this room. What was that?
I think Burger King just did one where you would put your camera, if you put your camera on a McDonald's advert, it would set on fire. Do you see that one?
Yeah.
No? Did anyone see that? Yeah, that was on fire.
So I think VR is awesome. Like, it's way cooler, or AR is awesome, or yeah, VR is awesome. It's way cooler. But in terms of accessibility, if you're not out there and accessible to everyone, then everyone doesn't have the ability to use your product, which means you're not going to grow.
I agree. Right, Mark or Drew?
Not in particular. I mean, the lower products with lower adoption are not really what we're looking at as a business. You know, the one thing I would say is that is this on?
I think so.
Okay, we are seeing in both mobile ad tracking as well as in gaming some adoption of blockchain. So it's starting to happen, but you know, in the context of again broad-based adoption, I think it's still pretty far out there. You threw blockchain out there, so I figured I would at least attempt to address
Everything's
it.
on blockchain now.
Yeah, I mean there are we have clients that have sort of dabbled in blockchain-powered gaming platforms, but it's I think it's primarily aspirational right now.
Yeah. I'm just looking at this clock literally ticking down. Have you no? Okay. So I think when we talk about the future of app growth, I really wanted not to go like too crazy into the future because quite honestly, we don't really know what's going to happen there. But one thing that we do know is that over the last certainly 5 years, especially in mobile marketing, I mean, there's been a huge consolidation when it comes to kind of mobile ad networks. You know, there are obviously a lot out there, and it's great to see that there's some good brands here. But like Drew, how do you see that panning out? Do you think it will just be the big publishers in the future, or do you think there's life outside of that?
No, I think there's definitely life outside the app. Like during my time at Letgo, we used to market on like 30 to 50 different like partners, and like what we found, you know, eventually you get smart, and then you realize like who the good publishers are. So that's why we consolidated down to, a lot of it goes to Facebook and Google, Snapchat, sources that you just have complete transparency on. So I think like the future of app growth, I think people are just more aware now, and just don't have the tolerance to deal with anything that looks suspicious. So yeah, I think that's kind of where it's going.
Cool. Oh, Drew, I mean, Perks is an interesting one because I would say that, you know, you are doing something that is well outside of kind of what we'd call standard. So, in fact, I love the whole panel here because we've got, you know, mobile first banking, we've got financing, subscriptions, and then we actually have a network that is, would you class yourself as a network?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I mean, because what brands do is they go onto our web platform, they create the questions, and the questions go instantly to the app, the answers come instantly back to them. So normally, I guess what would happen there is that it would take a month for a research company to go out and find those people and ask them the questions, and it's just not a whole lot of fun because it's boring and they send it in an email, whatever. But in terms of like a network experience, our users of the app feel like they're actually getting to influence these brands, so it's a bigger impact for them, and then they get to like get a bunch of free stuff too. So
yeah, interesting. Actually, for the audience, put your hands up if you know what a progressive web app is. Put your hands up if you've built a progressive web app. Wow, I mean that's crazy. So PWAs are supposed to be the future, and I think I saw 3 hands go up. Have you got any experience? Are you venturing into the world of PWAs? Is that a thing? Is that going to kill apps, do you think?
In my experience, I don't think it's going to collapse. At Letgo, we built a PWA website for desktop just to capture like people who are browsing for buying and selling secondhand things. We just found like engagement overall was just a lot lower, and I mean specifically for Letgo, it was no one wants to take a picture of something that they want to buy, or I mean sell, and then post it on their desktop. So it was just like, for us, it didn't make sense. But I think for other brands, it could possibly make sense.
Yeah. Has anyone else having any experience with people?
I think what would also help with is in terms of user acquisition, especially for iOS. Hopefully there's nobody from Apple here, but I mean, it would help to have a way around not having to pay the iTunes fee. So if you're doing any...
Yeah. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I think probably was not the best thing to say. But no, I mean, in terms of
30 billion in revenue.
Yeah, it's more and more important to be able to allow your users to interact with your products across all channels, any device they're using, and I think this is where the progressive web app is going to be very helpful.
Yeah, no, I agree. We've literally got 2 minutes, so I'm going to do one more question, and because we're talking about the future, I'm just really interested to see what you're going to say. I'll start from the end. If you could build any app, and it can do absolutely anything, like it can do anything you want, what would it do?
Wow. I guess it would probably teleport me, so I don't
I
have to...
was going to say that.
I don't have to sit on those planes for 8 hours across the sea.
Yeah, teleport is definitely a good one.
Read future, predict what's happening, what's coming, maybe.
Predict the future's good, yeah. Mark?
This still doesn't work.
You really don't get on very well with microphones, do you?
It would give me more time in the day. Create a 25th hour.
Nice.
Put a drink in my hand immediately.
All right. Ta-da! Don't need an app for that. Has anyone got any questions at all? Let's go to the pub.